And if you are watching the show this morning, we're looking at this morning in the front page of The Sun newspaper, Kyle's 90 minutes of shame. This is an exclusive, it tells us, 5:20 on a Sunday afternoon, last Sunday afternoon apparently, in a busy Manchester bar, and it's all about to kick off. I love how the tabloids do the kind of theme of the sport involved, football kick off, you get it? So that's where we're going with this. Kyle Walker in a bar, and they go on to tell us that Kyle behaved in a way that maybe he shouldn't have done. They called his behaviour around a couple of women appalling behaviour that shocked revellers at the Manchester venue. So you get an idea of where we're going with that. Just before we get into it, Manchester City tells this morning they won't be making a statement regarding the story on the front page of the newspaper I've just shown. The club believes this to be a private matter and Kyle will not be subject to any internal investigation. It's understood, Simon, that the feeling within the club is that he's not going to be charged with anything here, and this was a sanctioned day off. So really, where does all the furore? But with Kyle Walker involved, it's a kind of case of here we go again, is it not? Because after his lockdown breach in 2020, again, sometime later, as in nowish, Walker finds himself in the newspapers for reasons that he might not be best proud of. How much damage do you think this does to his reputation? Does it do any damage at all to his club's reputation?
I don't think it does any damage to Manchester City's reputation. Look, in this climate of the world that we live in now, this sort of behaviour is just unnecessary. It probably never was necessary. But I look at it in a certain way. I obviously, I'd take on board that the nature of the publication that's putting there, the language that they're using, because that's how you sell newspapers. And I look at the body of work that we judge Kyle Walker by, and yes, his private life is checkered. But then again, so are lots of people's, and that's his business. And what he does with his private life and how he has affairs outside of his marriage is nobody else's business but him. You move into the COVID stuff and so on and so forth, and when he was getting involved in sex parties during COVID, again, that's his private life. But of course, the regulations of the country at the time were the things he was being accused of. This sort of behaviour to me is silly, it's childish. At 32 years of age, you'd like to think someone would know better than to behave themselves in that way in public or even in private. But I don't look at it and say, well, it's a cardinal sin. He should be hung and flogged, and there should be this almighty race to the bottom to have every method that we can to find a way of punishing Kyle Walker. He hurts himself more. The fact is, he's a tremendous footballer. The fact is, I thought he behaved very well in the World Cup in terms of the way he engaged with the media and the sentiments he put out. I was quite impressed with Kyle Walker because I've got the image in the back of my mind of a bit of a wally that behaves in a certain way. So I was very impressed with him, the way he spoke to the press during the World Cup campaign in Qatar. I thought it was very forceful, very positive and very professional. You see this sort of stuff and you think to yourself, why would you want to behave in that fashion? Why would you want to put yourself in the way of it? In a culture and a climate where we are obviously seeing some dreadful behaviour in society, from terrible events like Sarah Everard across the board to the reclaiming of the streets that the women feel that they need to do because of the culture of the country that we live in at this moment in time. All of this plays into that narrative. I, as a football club owner, would look at this and say to the young man, was not a young man, he's a 32-year-old senior pro. Yeah. I would say to him, what's wrong with you? Why do you want to put yourself in the way with this? We can all go out and have a drink. We can all let off steam. And, of course, you were on a sanctioned time off from the club so you can go and do as you please. But why would you want to put yourself in harm's way like this? Why would you want to put yourself in the front page of newspapers for going around pulling your pants down in a nightclub? I mean, is there something wrong with you?
When you owned Crystal Palace, did you ever waken up to a headline like this involving one of your own players?
I woke up to headlines. I woke up to headlines by myself. That's true too. Yeah. But I woke up to stories being run, one that was untrue about Andy Johnson falling out of a cab and a big headline about cocaine-induced footballers, and the newspaper got sued because my boy had nothing to do with that, Andy. The second thing was about a player that I stopped a story being printed because for whatever reason he'd seen fit to get himself dressed up in a dress, go to a party, get drunk, get his private parts out and drink urine out of a bottle of beer. And I didn't think that was particularly clever, and he was a very decent footballer, and I managed to stop the newspaper. I think it was Rebecca actually. Managed to stop the story being printed and had a word with the player. So
how did you stop the story?
Look, that's how I stop the story. Is how I stop the story. I'm not going to get into that. But the point is that I was able to do that, and I was also able to sit with a young player and say, "What's wrong with you? You've got a career in front of you." Yeah. I don't suggest. I'm not putting you in the category of being a role model, but there is a certain expectation of playing for this football club, and being in a public domain, that you shouldn't want to behave in this fashion. you shouldn't want to behave. Now, go to Carl Walker. He should know better at 32 years of age. Whether he's having a good time. Back in the day, boys used to pull moonies. I know there'll be a crowd of people suggesting, oh, that was unacceptable at the time as well. We do have to get context, but you can't run around in a public place pulling your pants down, waving your private parts, if that's what he's doing.
Yeah, it's alleged. I mean,
there's grainy footage on CCTV.
It's grainy, and there's a little bit of, he pulls something down, but he could be showing a tattoo. We don't know. It could be anything. But
you've been in a situation before, Danny.
If it isn't what it is, the newspaper are going to get sued, are they?
Yeah, but I agree with Simon's sentiment just on the overview of it all. In your 30s, you do tend to know better.
Yeah.
Did
the tabloids get a hold of you for anything? You got a knock on the door? Like, what was it? What were you up to?
I've had various, Jim, over the years.
Impersonating a footballer.
Pardon? No, I missed that. Go on.
That was being smart. Go on.
No, I was trying to be cute there, saying you were impersonating a footballer. You were a great footballer, Danny.
I've had many. Some got published, some didn't. Some you can get pulled by certain ways and means, as Simon said. But
yeah.
I have to say that nearly all of them, even if they did get printed when they didn't, I would have had to hold my hands up and say that's me being stupid. You know, I've had journalists knock on the door when kids have answered in the past for nonsensical stories and stuff like that, and it's hard work. But if you behave in a decent manner and you're mature enough and you learn from your mistakes, you shouldn't get that too often. So I agree with Simon. I think in your 30s you should know better. But I also question how the hell this has got out from a CCTV of an establishment where someone's had a look and thought, oh, story, money.
Because he's a footballer and he's famous and it goes with the territory.
I know, but you know what I'm saying, Si, don't you? There's a cynicism around it.
Of course there is, but if you're not plugged into that and clued into it, if you're a professional footballer paying for the most successful club in English football right now, commanding and demanding the kind of attention you've got previously, and you walk into a public space and you start doing what he was doing, then you've got to expect that somewhere along the line someone is going to do something about it. The tragedy for me in all of this is that he's got young children, right? And whatever you do in life, right? Whatever you do in life is a legacy. Who wants to see their dad on the front page of a newspaper being told that he's been waving his willy at randoms?
Which is why what you said before stands true, is that ultimately the one who's going to suffer the most is him and his own embarrassment and reputation. In terms of, look, does it affect his football, what he did that day? No.
No.
Has he broken? I don't know if he's broken the law. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But
of course.
Well, maybe he has, but ultimately...
I mean, if you're exposing yourself in public, you are breaking the law.
Yeah, so let's wait.
And I do think that the law itself now extends beyond the victims being able to say, if there's victims of this, if they're not part of it, all the big load of shenanigans themselves, if they're not making a claim, then the newspapers will damn sure make sure that someone presses charges against him.
It's manna from heaven if you're a tabloid newspaper such as this. And it takes them to the 7th paragraph to say the £150,000 a week player was visibly drunk, etc., etc. So it's all there, the usual ingredients when it comes to a Premier League footballer maybe behaving in an inappropriate fashion. Just to reiterate, though, City will not be making any statement this morning regarding it. It's understood the club believes this to be a private matter and Kyle will not be subject to any internal investigation. We shall see. 10:30.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.